Welcome to Season 2 of Difference Talks, brought to you by the LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training Team. Our guests are inspiring people who share their stories of brand differentiation. Based on our book, The Power of Differentiation, our goal is to inspire 1 million people with the message that winning hearts and minds are the first step in growing market share. Now, on with the show.
Hello, everybody. This is Difference Talks. I am Barry LeBeau. I am the founder of LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training. I'm the author of The Power of Differentiation. Joining today is Marcus McMillan, who is our VP and co-owner. We are interviewing and meeting with Joe Pine. Joe is a renowned writer and speaker. He actually presented at the original TED Talk in California. He has spoken to the World Economic Forum at Davos. He created a book that we're going to talk about that came out 30, 40 years ago that absolutely changed the way companies look at what we might call the brand experience or the customer experience. Today, Joe is focusing on his next opus, which is all about the transformation economy. So buckle in. It'll be a fascinating discussion with a brilliant man. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Barry. It's a pleasure to be here, although you're making me out older than I am. You know, it's only been 26 years ago when the experience economy came out.
Well, hey, there you go. So there's already one positive. You're younger than I even realized. Joe, can you share the experience economy, the book itself? But it was a breakthrough concept. I witnessed it personally because our company was working with Audi at the time, and you came in and you absolutely turned them on their heads. They could not even believe what you were talking about, and it changed the way they looked at the brand experience. Please share the insights in what you talk about regarding the experience economy.
Thanks, Barry. It's very gratifying to hear what a difference it made with Audi, as hopefully with many other of my clients. But it really is about the search for differentiation, right? It's very aligned, because what's happening is that so many companies are becoming commoditized, and commoditized means no differentiation, right? They're bought on price and convenience, and have no basic differentiation. So it's really all my career. It's about that search for differentiation, and the experience economy is about how we've gone from an economy based off commodities, true commodities, right? The agrarian economy, through an economy based off of goods, the industrial economy, through a service economy. And today we're in an experience economy, an economy where experiences have become the predominant economic offering. That's what consumers, when we talk about B2Bs as well, that's what they're looking for. And what happens then is that goods and services become commoditized, where people don't care about them. They don't care about the brand, about the features. They're all pretty much the same anyway, and where they get bought again on price and convenience. So what that means is that in order to differentiate themselves, companies need to shift up what I call this progression of economic value from goods and services to experiences, to staging experiences for their individual customers. And experiences are basically memorable events that engage each individual in an inherently personal way, right? And that's what an experience is. And so you take your goods and services, you surround them with experiences, or use experiences to generate demand for your core services, as I know Audi has done. I in fact, the second car I ever bought was 1985 Audi Coupe GT, a car that I just absolutely loved. Mm-hmm. And I remember an experience at the old Metropolitan Stadium, south of Minneapolis, where we got to drive the newer Audis and take them through their paces and go on skid pads and around turns and all that. It was just like a wonderful experience. It really cemented that brand with me as my preferred brand.
Don't you think that we as consumers, and this could be B2B as well as B2C, we do not distinguish the difference between the brand and the brand experience. So as an example, if we have a terrible experience at a dealership or a distributorship, we walk out of there quite often very, very disappointed in the brand itself. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, yeah. I always say I'm not a brand guy, but I
Mhm.
remember after one Harvard Business Review article I wrote, I actually was welcome to the experience time that came out like 9 months before the book did, and a brand guy wrote in, and he used the phrase that I always remember this: a brand is the promise of an experience. Right? It's a promise of the, and the question is, do you fulfill that promise with every interaction you have with your customer? And so, yeah, it may be a automobile company where you think about the core is the car and the experience we have with the car, but you go into a dealership, it's a representation of that brand. And if it falls apart, or if in
Mm.
service it falls apart, one of the things I remember when I bought that car is whenever I took it in for service, they always washed the car for me, right? And I always remember that, right? The Audi dealership
Mhm.
washed the car until it went off of warranty. And then when I took it in, they stopped washing it. And I'm like, that's when you should start washing it, when I have a choice of where I go to have it done. And so, yes, it lessened the impact of the overall brand, even though they're not owned by Audi, and it doesn't have anything to do with the actual car itself.
I've got a Volkswagen. When I take it in and get it washed, comes out looking great, and you remember that. And whether you go to a whatever dealership it is or whatever, um, you know, repair shop to do that, when it comes out looking good and they even vacuum the inside, you're like, man, this sticks with you, and it just makes a marker. And yeah, it really stands out. Um, uh, to the point that you were making before, Joe, about these experiences. I mean, do you feel like there are some brands where it is more difficult to create those unique experiences for them? You mentioned B2B. In my mind, those experiences have to be a little difficult to create, unique ones for customers. Share a little bit about that. Is there a nuance to how those experiences are created, and the differences between some brands, automotive being a maybe an easier one to create those unique experiences?
Well, it can be more difficult in B2B. Certainly, you're not going to have your B2B customers walking by. If you've got a great experience out on the an experience hub on a main street or whatever. But the number one principle, particularly for manufacturers, whether consumers or B2B, is to get your customers, your potential customers, to experience your product before they buy it. Then the chances they will buy it go up. You think about Nestle and their Nescafe brand, which was forced with commoditization when Starbucks came around and created an experienced drinking place, and controlled so much more of coffee consumption. So they invented the capsule system, and allowed you to make an individual cup of coffee just for you. And then in order to sell it, they created the Nestle Nespresso stores and those boutiques, right? The Nespresso boutiques are where you can go in and then you can experience it all. They will make a cup of coffee for you using their own machine with the capsule that you want, and you get to experience it. And whenever you experience a product, the chances that you use that product go up. I know many B2B marketing experiences like that. The one that immediately comes to mind is Whirlpool company, the appliance manufacturer. They sort of like gutted their trade show budget and said, well, why go to a trade show and maybe we get 15 minutes of our channel partners' time? We're going to create our own place. And they took over this old building on the Chicago River in downtown Chicago, and they created the World of Whirlpool on the top two floors, where you go in and you get to experience the products. They show you, they take them through their paces. They have chefs that are cooking meals for you using all their appliances. You can even bring a dirty load of laundry if you want, and have it cleaned in there. And they get their clients for hours, right? Think about going from 15 minutes to hours where they actually experience it, and you can see how much more value that is going to be from them, for their marketing, for their brand.
Joe, in the various companies that you've stepped into, can you share a story of one where there was a challenge and it could have been an internal challenge or it could have been the product itself that needed to be overcome so that their experience could be appreciated by their end users. I'd love to hear a story of how you walked through it, just a little more granular if you could.
Yeah, well, you're making me search my mind, Barry, and thinking about that. But I've had clients where they really did feel those forces of commoditization, and they thought about how are we going to
Mm,
do that. I'm thinking in particular now of a bank actually in the Middle East that I worked with, and they wanted to see how experiences could play across many different components of the bank. So I went in and did a 3-day workshop with them. I opened with like a half day with the entire management team and get everybody to understand the principles. So when I worked with a smaller group, they'd understand what language they were talking about and so forth. Get them talking with each other, interacting. One of the keys of whatever company you're working with is get them to understand it at the consumer level, right? As me as an individual and how much more I prefer experiences over things and the experiences I value and so forth. And if they understand that, then they say, okay, well, our customers are feeling the same way. And so then we went into 2 more days of workshops with 4 or 5 different groups. So I would lead them through, basically imperatives of the experience economy. In particular, when we re-released the book in 2020 with a new preview, we positioned everything as basically as creating experiences that are robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and even transformative. Right. So those 5 basic elements of experiences, what I walk through with each of them, including one specifically on marketing experiences for a bank. And then each group did their own work on what this would mean for us, with our high luxury folks, with our physical plant and so on and so forth. And each one of them came up with ideas that they then worked on, and some of the presentations they made just amazed me. It turned out one group in particular was like their marketing folks, and they had access to all the people in the agency that can whip up all these images and everything quickly. Their presentation was amazing, but they basically presented back to the CEO and top direct reports, CFO included, and me on this is what we want to do. Right, and they decided whether to approve them or not, and 3 of them they approved immediately, and a couple they wanted more information, and then have been able to implement those.
What is the potential biggest mistake that leaders um, could do when they're creating these unique experiences? One that would come to mind is making sure that you're listening to your customer needs and applying that to what these experiences are all about. But are there potential mistakes or issues or challenges that could come up as they're creating these unique experiences or transformative type experiences?
Yeah. There's many issues, and I'll say one of the biggest ones that I see is a focus that executives make on CX, on customer experience, rather than what I call truly distinctive experiences. And there's a lot of people measuring CX and that, and they think they're doing experiences if they measure CX and look at their NPS scores and so forth. But customer experience is not the same thing as what I'm talking about. Customer experiences is let's make our interactions with our customers nice and easy and convenient. And those are all well and good, but rarely does that rise to the level of an experience, right? Nice, easy, convenience, those get you to a good service. But experiences have to go beyond. Nice is nice, but it isn't memorable, right? And you need to create a memory. You need to reach inside of people, engage them, and create that memory inside of them. Easy means that we often routinize things for our employees to make it easy to service our customers, but that gets in the way of being personal. And experiences are inherently personal. No 2 people have the same experience, even if they're same place at the same time, because it happens inside of us as our individual being reacts to the events that are staged in front of us. And convenience is the antithesis of a true distinctive experience. Convenience, again, is when people want you to be commoditized. Instead, you need to recognize with experiences that it's based off of time. The time customers spend with you, what they value is that time. And in fact, one way to think about it is that commodities, goods, and services all offer time well saved. That what people want is save your time. I don't want to have to dig up and find the commodities. I don't have to make the goods. I don't want to have to, clean my clothes or change the oil in my car or make my dinner, or, all these services that are out there. Well, I want somebody else to do it for me. It's time well saved. Experiences are time well spent. That people, again, value that time. And executives often don't understand that importance of time. In fact, consumers today, and even B2B companies, want goods and services to be commoditized so they can spend their hard-earned money and their harder-earned time on the experiences that they value. So that mindset is always, Mark, it's the number one thing that prevents people from making progress. They have the wrong mindset. They keep that service mindset, that mass production mindset. They even take on a CX mindset, but don't realize that doesn't mean that they're creating a memorable, personal experience that offers time well spent.
That's brilliant. Joe, when we come back from break, we'd like to dive into your next vision, which is your book on transformation. And I think our audience will love it. So everybody, thank you. We'll be returning in just a moment on Difference Talks.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
Welcome back. We are talking with the brilliant Joe Pine. Joe, share with us the transformation economy. That's the subject and the passion of your new book, which will be out in a few months.
Yeah, so the transformation economy is about that next level, right? What's the next level? Because if you think about it, experiences can be commoditized as well, right? In fact, it may be the easiest economic offering to commoditize because the second time you have an experience doesn't tend to be as good as the first. The third time, not as good as that. And then you've got customers saying, been there, done that. I think themed restaurants were the first really industry and experience kind of commoditize themselves. I wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review last year about how Starbucks is commoditizing itself now with what they're doing, or were last year. The new CEO is doing a much better job of bringing it back to that time well spent place, as opposed to a mobile ordering place. And so then you need to think about that next level is when you use experiences as the raw material to guide people to change, to help them achieve their aspiration. We all know the phrase life-changing experience. We have a life-changing experience. We only ever change through the experiences that we have. And so experiences can be not just memorable, but they can be transformative as well. And when you rise that up to a new level of economic offering that I call a transformation. So the transformation economy is hot on its heels of the experience economy, where increasingly people are looking for help in achieving their aspirations and becoming who they want to become, in flourishing in their lives, and seeking that out from companies. So it's the biggest economic opportunity today is to again create these experiences that truly transform your customers.
So not just to provide a convenient experience, a pleasant experience, or relatively interesting experience, it's also to dig deeper into learning and then answering what that customer wants that will literally change, transform their lives.
Right. You think of it this way, is that with transformations, the customer is the product. Right. It doesn't matter what stuff we make, what we deliver, even what experiences they undergo, if they don't get their aspirations achieved. So that's the focus with transformations, is on that direct individual customer. You're changing that. I said experiences engage us on the inside. Transformations change us from the inside out. And that's got to be the total focus of what you do. And one way to think about it is any business that's in the business of helping people be healthy, wealthy, and wise is in the transformation business. And you think about how much money we spend on health and well-being, on wealth and prosperity, on knowledge and wisdom in our lives. And all of that is to help us become who we want to become.
Joe, tell us about customization. So a lot of products and companies providing products customize those products, but obviously there's a number of them that don't, right? It's just off the shelf. It's a commodity, as we've talked about,
Right.
or it's synthetic customization or something. But what is it about really personalized customization that is so powerful, especially when you're talking about transformation?
Yeah, well, customization is really the DNA of this progression of economic value that I'm talking about. My first book that I wrote when I was still back at IBM many years ago was called Mass Customization. How do you give everybody exactly what they want, but do it at a price they're willing to pay? Efficiently serve customers uniquely. That's mass customization. And how I discovered the experience economy is recognizing that if you customize a physical good, you automatically turn it into a service, right? Because you're working with each individual person, not the masses. You don't make it until they tell you what they want, and then you make it and deliver it to them, and that's the definition of a service. And I recognize, well, happens when you mass customize a service? When you design a service so appropriate for this particular person, exactly that the service that they need at this moment in time. Well, then you can't help but make them go wow and turn into a memorable event. That's an experience. And when you customize those experiences, you individualize them to be exactly the experience I need right now. Then you can't help but then turn it into what we call that life transforming experience, that transformation. So it really is the core, and it's the antidote to commodization. Commodization is like the law of gravity. If you do nothing else, you will be commoditized. A customization lifts you up. You can't help but be differentiated if you customize for each individual customer that you have. And so it really does get you out of that commodization trap and allow you to create much more value for each one of your individual customers.
We worked with Volkswagen for a number of years with their accessories group. So you buy the car and then you put some really cool accessories on. One of the things we learned, I'd like your feedback on this, Joe, is that the more that customer customized their car, the more loyal they were to that brand and the more they fell in love with that car. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, Barry, as soon as you said the more they customize, I knew exactly what you were going to refer to, right? Because absolutely, when I'm customizing that car, I'm making it more of my identity, right? That's the key then another of the books that I co-wrote is called Authenticity. And it's about how you want offerings that match who you are as an individual human being, that match your identity. And so it increases the value. In fact, there's a lot of research that shows, right, that if you give somebody a mug, right, then offer to buy it back from them, for example, right, they'll do that. But if you give them the mug and then you let them customize it for you, then the price at which it takes to buy it back immediately like doubles, triples, quadruples, because it becomes an extension of who we are. So more customization, the better. And I remember doing a lot of work in the car industry as well. How it took them decades to recognize how many billions of dollars that customers were spending with other companies, usually mom and pop craft shops, that were taking those cars and customizing them. And they're completely missing that part of the business when it was the most profitable part of the business, is to customize the vehicle, not buy the standard things that they have sitting in a lot somewhere.
Well, Harley Davidson was at one point a very utilitarian product. They very often were the police department's or the Army's motorcycle. Willie G. Davidson, one of the relatives of the founders, said, you know what, we're losing a lot of money on these chop shops. So these were the shops that would customize your motorcycle. So you'd come in with this very utilitarian Harley and they would put chrome on it. They put bags on it. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And Willie G said, we're losing the greatest opportunity that our brand has. We're not allowing people to turn that product into their very own masterpiece.
It's a huge loss opportunity for everybody else. And Davidson was very farsighted in recognizing that. And so I would encourage your listeners to think about, how are people customizing their standard products and even their services today? What are they doing to them after they get them home, after they get them into their business and offices, and recognize that's an opportunity for you to create more value, because because they don't want to spend the time doing that. They'd rather you provide it exactly the way they want it from the get-go. But doing that, takes thinking differently about the business.
We like to ask Joe, what is your best day? And that best day for us isn't typically a day that you're tired and you're ready to go, hit the sack and go to bed, but it's actually a day you maybe come home and feel energized. You're excited. You're thrilled about what you've accomplished in the day. What does that day look like for you, Joe? And, explain what happened in that day and, kind of how it made you feel.
I got so many answers to that, because there's no one best day. There's many types of days that can be so good. One is a lot of the days I'm spending now is on writing, just going through and writing. It's my first love, that you don't really understand an idea and a topic, a framework, until you have to write it out, which goes into much more depth than you ever do when talking or working with companies on it. And then the next thought is, well, what I really love seeing is light bulbs going on, though, when I share this with companies, either in a speech or in a workshop. In a speech, I did one in Mexico a few weeks ago, and there were 2,000 people in the audience. And still you could see the light bulbs going on with them. You could see how they were leaning forward into things, how attentive they were, even though not all of them spoke English, most of them did. And you can see that with the questions that I got afterwards. And then after it was over, the discussions I had with people in the hallways and at lunch and so forth, that it's just very gratifying to see that they take to these ideas and see how they can apply it to their own business. And then when you do workshops, it's even more than that, because you can start to see them develop those ideas and say, okay, this is what we're going to do as a result of it. So those are great days as well. And I got to give one more answer, because, we're coming up on my annual vacation with my wife to Hilton Head, South Carolina, where basically I work a half day and I golf a half day. And now that's a best day as well.
That's good. Hey, one last question for you. I was trying to get into, Joe. Who's doing this well? What company out there, what team out there is providing these experiences, one, that are transformative and doing them well?
There's a lot of companies that are doing it. Again, it's not that experience and transformations are new. They've always been around. You can obviously point to the world's premier experience stager, the Disney company, the Walt Disney Company, and what they've been doing for 100 years basically, and leading the way into experiences. But one company that's gone beyond them by bringing customization into it is Carnival Corporation with the Princess Cruises line, and they hired a number of years ago John Pageant, actually just recently left, but John Pageant as their chief experience and innovation officer, and eventually the general manager or president of Princess Cruises. And he was one of the first guys that on the team that developed the Magic Band for Disney. And so he sort of brought that, but he never got them to do the level of customization that we wanted. And this frankly arose from workshops that I did at Walt Disney World, a number of them in the early 2000s that he was a part of. And I really impressed upon them the need to customize the experience, that Disney is so mass. And so he did that with the Magic Band, but with Carnival, he got to do so much more, is that you had this ocean medallion that identifies who you are and tracks what you love to do. And so every worker can greet you by name because they know who you are because of the medallion. They can offer you your favorite drink, even recognizing that, when you're on the pool deck with your kids, your favorite drink might be an iced tea with no lemon. When you're in the bar with your buddies, it's a mojito. When you're in the restaurant with your spouse, it's a glass of Shiraz. What market am I in now? So customizing down to that level, which has been a tremendous advantage for them. So that's one company I would point to. And they're, a ton of manufacturers are creating just amazing flagship marketing experiences, including like the Heineken experience in Amsterdam, the World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin, and Johnny Walker Princess Street in Edinburgh. And the designer of three of those experiences, Bob Rogers of BRC Imagination Arts, his company, I recently talked with him about how what they're really doing is they're inviting a transformation. And I think this is very important for your brand work and thinking about it, Barry and Marcus. But it's inviting people to transform into becoming a brand ambassador, if you will, into loving the brand. Guinness turns over 100,000 people they say every year into a Guinness drinker just because they go in the storehouse. They sell over 1 million pints more every year, but just because people come to the storehouse. And I hadn't really thought of it that way before. That they're inviting you in and saying, hey, let me introduce you to this thing that you haven't experienced before. Let me show you about the intricacies of it. Let me show you how to enjoy it the most. And people go, wow, I'm now a Guinness drinker, or I'm a Johnny Walker drinker, and stuff. And I think that can be repeated at many businesses, almost any business, if you do it well.
Well, this is a wonderful conversation we've had. I'd love our audience to look up Joe Pine, look at these brilliant books that he's put out, follow him. The name of your company, do you want to share that? So if anybody wants to go take a look, they can look you up.
Sure. Your Strategic Horizons LLP. So strategichorizons.com. You can find us there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want as well.
We have learned today so much regarding the experience, regarding transformation, regarding breaking that commodity lure that's out there by customizing the experience. We thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity to identify the genius of Joe Pine today. All of us at Difference Talks appreciate this. I ask the audience to please look into Joe. He is absolutely fantastic. And until next time, thank you for joining and listening to Difference Talks.